It's the early 1950s, and paranoia is gripping America. The Cold War is escalating, communism is on the move, and American authorities are convinced the Soviets and Chinese have discovered a new, terrible weapon: the ability to manipulate the human mind. Stories from the Korean War tell of American prisoners of war suddenly denouncing America, making bizarre confessions, even defecting. Have they been brainwashed? Had the enemy discovered a way to reprogram human brains? To the CIA, this was not science fiction. It was a threat to their very existence. And so, in April of 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles approved a top-secret program with one goal: beat the Soviets at their own game. It was given a strange, bureaucratic code name: MKUltra. The name is still unknown, as MK doesn't have any connections to any previous CIA programs, but Ultra means it was one of the most important programs they had. Behind that title was something ominous, something that would shatter hundreds of lives and leave an erasable stain on the country's history. The agency wanted ways of getting prisoners to reveal their secrets, of crushing enemies psychologically, even perhaps of creating what they dreamed as a Manchurian candidate, a person whose thoughts and actions could be completely controlled. And the CIA wasn't fussy about how they got there. They funded research at universities, hospitals, and prisons, sometimes using front foundations so that the researchers involved did not know that they were working for the CIA. Sometimes they knew and simply didn't mind. What counted were the results. The crown jewel of the program was a new, exotic drug that had just been developed in Switzerland: LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide. Sidney Gottlieb, the CIA chemist who led MKUltra, considered it to be the ultimate control drug. He ordered the agency to buy up the world's supply, over 10 kilograms, enough to make half the United States high. The CIA then began testing it, anywhere, on anyone. Soldiers volunteered, unaware of the total risks. Prisoners were given doses. Psychiatric patients, already vulnerable, were given massive doses of LSD combined with electroshock. And in some cases, the CIA administered it to people in bars, hospitals, and even to their own agents without their awareness at all. One of those agents was Frank Olson. Olson was an army scientist who was working on biological warfare. But in November of 1953, at a CIA retreat, his colleagues secretly slipped LSD into his drink. He fell into paranoia and depression. 9 days later, Olson fell to his death from the 13th floor of a New York hotel. The official verdict? Suicide. But decades later, it surfaced that he may have been pushed, literally, to allow CIA secrets to remain buried. His death became the most haunting symbol of MKUltra's cost. Yet Frank Olson was far from a solitary victim. In Montreal, Canada, at McGill University's Allen Memorial Institute, psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron directed one of MKUltra's most notorious sub-projects. Cameron believed that he could erase a person's mind, depattern them, and rebuild them from scratch. With CIA funds funneled through front groups, he infected patients with massive doses of electroshock, saturated them with drugs, and bombarded them with the repetitive recordings of messages during sleep. Some lost their memories, some forgot how to talk, or how to take care for their own children. Their identities were destroyed, all in the name of science that was not even being properly supervised. What's scary is how ordinary these victims were: a depressed mother who sought treatment, a student attempting to overcome anxiety, prisoners who were not even given a choice, bar visitors who thought they were just going to have a drink. None of them gave informed consent. Most did not even know they were part of a CIA project. MKUltra brewed for years, expanding into a spiderweb of evil. It had dozens of sub-projects that looked into everything from sensory deprivation to hypnosis to the use of unusual chemicals in the brain.
It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating. Felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just... Oh.
You want to start for me?
I walked around.
You want to start?
Oh, I can talk. I lived through it. I lived through it. I lived through it.
At its core, the program was about control, how to erase a person's free will and reprogram them for the good of the state. But the walls did eventually begin to close in. By the early 1970s, times were changing. Vietnam had eroded public confidence, Watergate was exposing corruption in government, and CIA Director Richard Helms knew that if MKUltra were ever discovered, it would destroy the agency's reputation. So in 1973, Helms gave the order, destroy all MKUltra files. Truckloads of documents were burned or shredded. The truth, the entire truth, went up in flames. But Helms made a mistake. Some documents filed in a financial repository were left behind. In 1977, researchers discovered about 20,000 forgotten documents. They were budgets, receipts, memos. They were enough, however, to reveal the outlines of MKUltra's extent. The public was shocked. Victims testified before Senate hearings about being shocked and drugged unknowingly. The CIA admitted, under oath, that it had performed secret experiments on U.S. citizens. Families such as Frank Olson's demanded answers, and some were provided with settlements. In Canada, patients of Dr. Ewan Cameron sought justice, and some were awarded damages decades later. Most victims never received recognition. Too many records had been destroyed, too many secrets buried, and too many secrets that we will never know. And yet, MKUltra's impact was gigantic. It prompted the U.S. to finally take research ethics seriously. Rules governing consent became stricter. Institutional review boards, or the panels that must now approve experiments with human subjects, became far more important. Psychiatrists and psychologists came to terms with their own ethical failures, and the public became far more skeptical of the government's secrecy. But MKUltra's shadow didn't end there. The fact that so much evidence was incinerated made it a fertile ground for conspiracy theories. Were people such as Lee Harvey Oswald or the Unabomber mind control creations? Did the CIA knowingly distribute LSD into the counterculture to destabilize society during the 60s? The documents don't support these accusations, but the reality of MKUltra made them plausible. What we do know is terrifying enough. The CIA covertly drugged, shocked, and manipulated people, often without their knowledge or consent, in the interest of national security. They destroyed lives, and they left scars that families are still living with today. And the biggest takeaway? MKUltra shows what happens when fear and secrecy collide. When the government convinces itself the ends justify the means. When humans are not treated as citizens, not even as humans, but as test subjects. 70 years later, MKUltra is one of the most sinister experiments in American history. A reminder that the battle for control of minds, truth, or history itself is always closer than we imagine. Thank you.